You are watching Rules of the Game with Mark Cisco on Rider Nation Station, brought to you by these following fine sponsors: Buffalo Wild Wings, Miller's Funeral Home, Eagles Lodge 767, Rabel's Auto Service, Plus One Professionals, Hoglace Equipment Rental, Midway Trailers, American Legion Post 323, Albert Sporting Goods, Family Ideology, Speckman Automotive, Kogi Plumbing and Heating, Spees Chiropractic, Varsity Lanes, Minster Bank, VFW Post 9289, and Quinary Pizzeria.
Hello and welcome to Rules of the Game with Mark Cisco. I'm your host, Zach Ferrall. Each and every week we have local official Mark Cisco here to try to answer some questions about some clips or some viewer questions out there. Mark, I wanted to jump right in. We had a couple viewer questions right off the bat.
All right, let's go.
The first one is somebody noticed that a lot of the players, when they would meet with the coaches, they're no longer meeting in the center of the field. They have to go to the sides. We didn't know if that was a new rule or if that's just some new preference that the coaches
That's
are
a great
doing.
question. And more you see teams come to the sideline when there's a timeout call, right? And that's typically the way it's done. And that all comes down from the college area because in colleges they have to come over. All right, but in high school you can have what's known as an authorized conference in the middle field, basically between the top of the numbers, all right, or on the sideline in front of the team box, okay, below the top of the numbers, and the team box stretches from 25 to 25. And the one on the sideline, you can have any number of players, substitutes, you can have the whole team out there if you want, and any number of coaches are involved. The conference that's in the middle of the field, let's call it, between the top of the numbers, is only allowed to have up to 11 players and one coach. And any water boys, up to 3 attendants, water boys, water girls, whatever you might have, all right? And so it used to be that way. Or, you know, the team could stay out there and run one kid to the sideline and then come back. That's all fine. But there can only be one type of conference per timeout. In other words, you can't have some huddling over here with the coach and then the rest out in the middle of the field with the coach. That's not permissible. All right, and there's a penalty for that, believe it or not.
Really?
There's a penalty for unauthorized conference is a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct penalty against the team that's creating the problem. Now, have I ever called that? No. Have we ever had coaches try to come out and do 2 at a time? Yes. We just politely send them off to the side and say, no, you can't do that, or we're going to have to flag you. And that gets their attention right away, and away they go. So you're right. I mean, you don't see it very often. And if the officials let it go, then shame on them for letting it go.
Gotcha. I can't remember right. What was the other question that had come up?
We talked about what came in was a question about turf fields, or they don't seem to see people measuring for first downs much anymore.
We don't see the sticks come out off of the sidelines to measure for the first downs anymore. We see a lot more just saying go or not.
Yep.
And that's because of turf fields?
A lot of it is. They're well marked. It's not like the grass fields that sometimes you get wavy lines and this and that. I mean, you see that once in a while, even with today and the technology available to paint lines. But with the turf fields, it's pretty cut and dry. We accept those as gospel, so to speak. 10 yards, and we're told that, look, make it something. Make it a first down, make it a second down, or not. Just depends on where the ball is at. In a close game, will we measure? Yes, we will. In a game that's out of hand, will we measure? Probably not, because the coaches don't want that. And if it's that close in a 35-10 game, we're probably going to make it something without issue, unless they're really wanting a measurement for some odd reason. And we can't.
And we don't have video review, so wherever that official puts that ball is where they believe it's going to.
Wherever the ball is going to
stay.
Dead, that's just what you're going to get at this level.
So you trust the straight lines on the turf fields.
We trust the straight lines unless they prove us different, which we're not going to check every line.
Right.
Okay, we do check the chains, but we don't check that. So. And most of the time, when you measure, you know what you're going to get. Not always, but most of the time.
Yeah. Well, those are a couple things that we noticed from Friday night, and some viewers did too. So keep sending your questions in. We'll try to get everything addressed each
Great
week.
Questions, yeah.
We're going to jump right in here. We had a relatively clean game, but some interesting things that came up. This first call was I think a block below the waist called on the center for St. Mary's. You can see he jumps out there into the legs, and there's also somebody over the top with the tackle there.
Yeah, let's see that again if we can here. We got that there.
So the center shoots out, and the tackle's sort of pushing the guy. Is that?
Are we positive that wasn't a chop block call?
Not positive. Yeah. I think the motion was like this. Is that a chop block?
Well, that is actually a clipping call right
Okay.
there. Now I don't see a clip there. And if it was initially on the center's block below the waist, now the center's allowed to one step as long as he initiates that contact right away. And in my view, in this clip, that the center did snap the ball and took one step and started the block below the waist, which is perfectly legal. Now, what you could have next is you may have the guard or the tackle hitting somebody that may have been engaged secondarily by the center, which could create a chop block.
Okay.
Now, there's a helmet right there. I don't see an issue with that. There could be a chop block right here probably on 77. You
Okay.
see 77 there?
So
That could have been a call.
So it's the fact that the center was engaged under the legs, and then nobody else can engage him over the top.
Then that's going to be a chop block.
Okay.
That's a classic right there.
Okay.
So it might have been a chop block. I don't see block below the waist, but I do see possible chop block.
And it just may have been me misreading the
and it could have been the official just not signaling properly as well.
Okay.
So
all right.
and I will take your word because it happens sometimes.
I think I remember it being a motion of
that
that.
definitely is
but
probably not the right call.
Okay.
And again, we weren't there for sure. I wasn't on the field. So
Okay.
there we go.
This next play was an encroachment called on St. Mary's. You can see the defensive end closest to us
Okay.
already sort of started what looks like a little bit over.
He looks a little bit over the football and definitely probably lines up over it right there.
Unfortunately, we don't have any other view to see really the
Right.
pure sidelines, but
I'm
take
going to tell
the
you
official's
what,
word for it.
We're gonna, if the helmet's just barely grazing the front of the football, we don't have an issue. He's probably put his hands down pretty much over the ball, or maybe even towards the offensive side of the football to get that call. And it was correctly called before the snap because that is a dead ball foul.
Well, and that was my other question: is how long we talked about? You'll give him usually a chance to get back on the other side, but it looked like he'd gotten set, so they're just going to go ahead and call it at that point.
It looked like that he was set, and the quarterback was into his calling signals right away, and that's a timing judgment thing. But even if they had snapped it, it's still a dead ball. We're going to kill it and redo.
All right, Mark. Well, this next play was one that my partner Joe Hurlbert brought up during the broadcast. We're going to let this one play here. This is the play that's kind of set up what we're going to talk about.
Okay.
So this was at the end of the half. OG is sort of backed up. They had just picked off a long pass from St. Mary's. This running back bounces out and goes way down the field here. Now, OG had limited timeouts, and they're trying to score here right before half. So they run down the field.
Okay.
So we're going to go to the next clip here.
All right.
The next clip is showing the next play. I believe OG spiked the ball to stop the clock. And you can see on the top of your screen the crew, the line crew, sort of running into the picture there. And so Joe was concerned. He said, how can the officials set the ball and allow them to snap when the chain crew's not even down there yet?
That's a great question. Now, that is possible. That came into a play for us 3 or 4 years ago where the folks at the OSHA office decided, look, we can have the ball set, ball ready for play, and the chain crew not be in place. That's not an issue to slow a team down. If that's a situation where they're going and everything else is legal, the linesman over there on that side is supposed to drop the orange beanbag right where the ball would be, and the chain crew is then going to catch up. Probably the down box is going to catch up first, and then they'll bring the chains, and then they'll set them. So in this case here, it looks like the down box is set because up there right on the 30, let's call it the 33-yard line, there sits the down box.
Right.
And the other guy is going downfield there at the 30, so he's going on past. So here comes the chains. So it's very possible that there was a beanbag drop there. You set it and go. And by the time the first play is run for something like that, the chain crew is probably there, and we're continuing to move on.
Now, something I've always been curious about along the same lines is does the defense have to get back on their side of the ball right away if there's a big defensive lineman that's still running down the field to try to get on his side of the ball? Is it just up to the official to decide what's a reasonable time for the offense to get going?
Exactly. That's exactly right, because you got to give teams reasonable time to get into play. You can't snap the football when somebody's still running up and down the field. But by the same token, you're not going to wind the clock, or you shouldn't wind the clock till everybody is on their correct side of the football. And normally in our crew, we'll have the umpire come up and stay at the football until we make sure everybody is set, now, especially on those long plays. Now, normally teams are pretty good. They'll get there, and they know what's happening, and they want to get on side and everything else. But if there's not, we will wait until everybody is set before we go. Now, in the meantime, this play clock is running, right? So if the defense says, well, we'll just be really slow coming back, we could charge them with a delay of the game foul.
Okay.
And then move it 5 yards, and then not start the clock until they snap the football. So we have ways to enforce, fair play, so to speak.
So you can't just delay yourself on purpose.
You can't, take 35 seconds of the 40 play clock to get over the line of scrimmage, because that's going to draw some ire from us as officials. Yes.
This next play here was so this was the very next play after the spike. Nice catch and run after catch by the OG offensive wide receiver. But there was a blind side block called against their receiver downfield on a St. Mary's guy, right about the 15-yard line right there.
That's a good call.
So
that's a great call.
OG's coaches were very, very upset. I think that he got almost into the end zone right down at the 1-yard line, and it comes back. What's the officials looking for right there?
Well, we're looking for that type of thing. You got the offensive player is basically swimming, what we call swimming upstream, going against the grain. He's coming back towards the football. The play is coming outside of him, and he's coming back against the normal flow here. So that's going to pick up. That's going to make our eyes go to him right away. And the wing official does a good job in catching this, because he's looking right at it, and boom. And now, if that offensive player had used his hands on his shoulders, no foul. But he come in with shoulder to shoulder, and that's considered a blindside block. If he gets those hands out, he makes that block with his hands. The block does the same thing, and that's the premise behind the rule is, to take away some of those hits that are going to force a kid to the ground and have, forcible contact like that. So, if he uses his hands, great, super. The kid gets down to the 2, and we're keeping going.
So that's just a matter of coaching, that if you're going to have those type of blindside blocks, it needs to be all hands and no shoulder, no helmet.
So maybe the coaches were upset with themselves, and maybe they coached it properly, and the kid just didn't do it. And that rule's been in place 3 or 4 years now, so it's not like it's new this year.
Yeah. The only thing I wasn't sure is I thought that there was an element of it that said that if it was part of the play, if it was in the play itself, then it was a little bit more allowed.
Don't confuse that with being within the free blocking zone.
Okay.
The free blocking zone exists. It's a 4 by 4 yards on either side of the football, 3 yards deep on either side of the football. Any close line play like that blindside block is available, because let's face it, those kids don't have a lot of time to get up ahead of steam, right? Inside there, and you played in there, you know what it's like.
Yeah.
You're not going 10 yards and whapping somebody, so that's allowed. But out there, again, you got a lot of time to get up ahead. He could have done a lot more damage if he'd really came hard.
Right.
But the problem was he didn't get his hands out to make the block.
Well, and we see that with they call it crackback blocks a lot of times, coming in off the line. Okay.
Correct.
All right. Well, that was an interesting play there.
That was a good get by the official. That was a good call.
Yeah, and there were 2 flags on it coming from multiple directions, so they've all recognized it.
Right.
This next play was a kick recovered by St. Mary's, about the furthest onside kick I've ever seen down the field there. Recovered around the 10-yard line, and you can see the OG receivers just kind of run away from the ball. They thought it was going out of bounds, and then I'm really not sure why the one in the back ran away from it when it still wasn't in bounds.
Right.
But he did. I know we were able to see in the replay on the broadcast.
I'm curious looking at that play. I mean, it looks like the official comes up, but where was the ball actually recovered? Do we know? Do we know for sure?
You can sort of see it right there.
Okay.
So it looks like about the 11 or 12-yard line.
Okay, so he had it in his possession, then fell down a little bit further downfield.
Yeah, well, he actually kept running with it.
Sure.
So that was another point I was going to bring up, was a lot of people in the stands, I think, thought that he could run that in for a touchdown.
Cannot.
And I said it's the same thing as an onside kick.
Correct.
If it goes 10 yards, wherever you recover it is where it starts.
That's exactly right. You cannot take a kick and go with it into the end. He can recover it and keep it, but you can't go with it.
Right.
So that's a great play by St. Mary's. I mean, they just kind of pooched it down there and hoped that would happen. And strangely enough, the last time I had a St. Mary's OG game, it was at Skip. St. Mary's tried the same thing and did recover it, and the OG kids got away from it. And now that's been 30 years ago or something
Yeah.
like that. It's been a long time, but yeah, that's interesting. And that's just a great play by St. Mary's.
Yeah, and here's just another end zone view of it. But yeah, it was just really interesting. It's the longest onside kick recovery that I can remember. A lot of times you see like maybe the receiver bobble the ball or something like that, or kick it on accident, or but you very rarely see the kicking team able to recover the ball down that far. All right, next we had St. Mary's in the second half going into the end zone a couple times, and there were some close calls on the fumble. This one, it's interesting. They don't call it a fumble. They call it stopped at around the 1 yard line, but they also throw in ball markers like they're marking the spot.
So that would indicate to me as a coach that somebody's got the ball loose before he was down. Now, the wing guy out here at the bottom at the pylon, he's looking directly at that. He's looking for knee, ball, whatever, and he's looking for the knee, and he's looking for the ball when the knee hits.
Maybe they just said that, now I'm looking at it, maybe they just said that the St. Mary's running back recovered it, so maybe that's why we kept the ball there. But
could very well be. We've got beanbags, so that indicates to me that, okay, he's got even the beanbag that there was an actual fumble. All right, so the ball is still live, so maybe St. Mary's come up with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got the next play then. We got an end zone view of this play, so let's take a look at that. Maybe, I don't think it gives us, unfortunately, it's pretty far away, but just a different view of it there off the tackle, but off tackle from Aiden Hinkle.
We got beanbags coming from all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how.
I think that it was considered a fumble, but St. Mary's recovered it. So. The next play then, number 7 there, is interesting. So this was a play or two later where we scored a touchdown. It was ruled a touchdown, and the ball also pops out into the end zone there.
Okay, and that's possible. I mean,
and we talked about it in the broadcast that the ball just has to break the plane, right?
Break the plane. The goal line is not the whole line. It's just the front part of the line that touches the green. And if the ball, you think of it as a pane of glass.
Right.
As soon as the ball touches that pane of glass, it's touchdown.
And here's the same play from a different angle off the side, and you can see the ball kind of roll there. And you see some bags thrown too, but I think the officials got together and said
The wing guy said, look, the ball was over the plane before, and quite honestly, I think the umpire probably should keep that beanbag in his pocket because he can't tell where the ball crosses or where it doesn't. So that's just a mechanic thing from me.
Right, and I know that the wing, you can see the wing also signaled a touchdown right away.
Yeah, the off guy did. So the guy on our side didn't have a really good look at it, but the other guy did. So we're going to go with it.
This was later in the game. A pass from OG was batted backwards, and St. Mary's, I think, attempted to recover it like it was like a fumble or something. But just thought it was a good learning experience to say that, look, even though that's good hustle, the ball's still going forward, so it's still an incomplete pass.
It was a forward pass. It ends up being an incomplete pass when something like that happens. Now I've seen this play happen where the quarterback will throw it, and it will get batted into the air or get batted back to him, and then he'll try to throw it again. The only problem with that is you cannot have two forward passes on the same play. So the quarterback at that point was guilty of an illegal forward pass on the second one. And that, you don't think of it like that because it doesn't happen very often. But the first one was incomplete, obviously. Well, it actually was complete because it came back to the quarterback.
Right.
And then he tries to toss it again. Well, the second one is illegal.
So you can have a forward pass to yourself one time.
And the quarterback could have taken off with it and would have been fine, but he couldn't throw it. And nobody could throw it again from that side of the line of scrimmage.
Well, we had a late touchdown from St. Mary's, and I think some frustration from the OG side because we can see an OG player. It's harder to see in this view, but on our broadcast we were able to see pretty clearly. OG player rips the helmet off and throws it there.
And we get a flag for that right away. That's a good call. That's a good call. Yep.
And also an interesting part about it was, and he announced it, I think he announced unsportsmanlike conduct, and he said number 3 can stay in the game. And we talked about that before, that if the helmet comes off, you normally have to sit out a play. So our player can stay in the game because he had his helmet ripped off.
Correct, and there was a foul called.
Right.
All right. Now it was not an unsportsmanlike foul because that was not a non-contact foul. Unsportsmanlike is reserved for that type of thing. Running your mouth, things of that nature. So he should have signaled dead ball personal foul. And
maybe it was. I could be wrong on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But people say, well, it's still 15 yards. It is, but it makes a difference. If you charge a kid with unsportsmanlike and he gets a second one, he's gone.
I think it was this. Is that
personal foul?
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Then you're right.
Okay.
Right.
I just I guess I was just
I'm
wrong
here
on
to
that.
keep you straight. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm here for.
And then we're just finishing up with a pretty simple false start from the wide receiver in the bottom of your screen from OG. Just a little bit of a flinch there.
It was a little bit of a flinch, and you know what? Depending on when we have that in the game's not in doubt. I mean, I don't know if we call that, but
This was pretty late in the game. I thought it was a little ticky-tacky for that.
No, he did. It's technically the right call.
Yeah.
At that point, St. Mary's could have cared less, probably.
Well, I just had to throw an easy one in here for you at the end. So
I appreciate it.
Mark, thank you for answering all of our viewer questions today and going over some of those interesting clips.
It's all a pleasure.
We'll see you back next week, hopefully for some clips reviewing a victory with Van Wert.
Let's hope so. Tough game coming up.
And we'll be back next week with Mark Cisco for Rules of the Game. Thank you all for watching, and thank to our sponsors on Rider Nation Station. We'll see you next week.
You are watching Rules of the Game with Mark Cisco on Rider Nation Station. Brought to you by these following fine sponsors: Buffalo Wild Wings, Miller's Funeral Home, Eagles Lodge 767, Rabel's Auto Service, Plus One Professionals, Oglaze Equipment Rental, Midway Trailers, American Legion Post 323, Albert Sporting Goods, Family Ideology, Speckman Automotive, Kogi Plumbing and Heating, Speeds Chiropractic, Varsity Lanes, Minster Bank, VFW Post 9289, and Guarneri Pizzeria. Thanks for watching another episode of Rider Nation Station. Help us help you by subscribing on YouTube or following us on Facebook. You are watching Rules of the Game with Mark Cisco on Rider Nation Station, brought to you by these following fine sponsors: Buffalo Wild Wings, Miller's Funeral Home, Eagles Lodge 767, Rabel's Auto Service, Plus One Professionals, Oglaze Equipment Rental, Midway Trailers, American Legion Post 323, Albert Sporting Goods, Family Ideology, Speckman Automotive, Kogi Plumbing and Heating, Speeds Chiropractic, Varsity Lanes, Minster Bank, VFW Post 9289, and Guarneri Pizzeria.